In the early morning of October 21st, 1966, in a quiet Welsh village named Aberfan, a shadow stirred atop the mountain. Within minutes, an unstoppable black tide swallowed a school, homes, and futures. This was not a natural disaster, it was man-made, and it left a scar across a generation, from morning calm to catastrophic chaos. "240 children had just taken their seats at Pantglas Junior School. Most were between 7 and 10 years old. It was just after 9 a.m. then. Without warning, a wave of coal slurry surged down the hillside. The school was engulfed. 18 homes vanished. The ground shook and silence fell. The dark mass moved like liquid mud. But once settled, it solidified into a suffocating trap. Parents screamed. Residents rushed with shovels and bare hands. Miners ran from the colliery, trading pickaxes for hope, but time was not on their side. The first survivors were pulled from the wreckage within minutes. By 11 a.m., no one else was found alive. Most victims had suffocated. Others died of crushing injuries. The junior school was no more. Childhood dreams ended in darkness. "116 children, 28 adults. A chapel turned into a mortuary. Parents queued to identify tiny bodies. Names were matched. Tears fell. Even the space wasn't enough. They issued death certificates from a nearby fish and chip shop. Volunteers poured into Aberfan. Some helped, others got in the way. Journalists asked grieving children to cry for the camera. The slurry was still shifting. Rescue became risk. Clogged river, burst mains, and unstable ground slowed every effort. On October 27, 1966, 81 children and 1 woman were buried together. A collective grave, a collective heartbreak. Tens of thousands stood silent as tiny coffins passed. The Queen came days later, her face etched with grief. Lord Robbins, head of the National Coal Board, promised full cooperation. But words proved hollow. Investigations found tip number 7 sat on a natural spring. Rainfall turned solid waste into deadly slurry. They should have known. The village had warned them. Residents had raised concerns for years: blocked drains, shifting ground. But each letter, each plea, was met with indifference. Miners were afraid to speak up, fearful the mine would close, costing everyone their livelihoods. A 76-day tribunal found the NCB responsible. 9 employees were named. No charges were filed. No one was punished. Robbins walked free. Aberfan had been failed by the system, by the state, by those sworn to protect. Families were offered £50 for each child. After outrage, this rose to £500. Still, it wasn't enough. The Charity Commission blocked funds to families whose children weren't physically injured. Even gravestones weren't fully covered. Despite the loss, the Black Mountains loomed still. Officials said removal was pointless. Villagers begged, protested, even dumped slurry at the Welsh office in protest. They were arrested. The tips haunted every waking hour. Removal of the tips was slow and costly, and worst of all, it was paid partly using money from the disaster fund donations meant for survivors. Robbins resisted paying a penny. The government repaid the fund years later without interest. New laws were passed. Spoil tips were now regulated. Safety became priority. No child would die beneath coal again. Aberfan became a lesson. But to its people it was always more than that. It was their children, their school, their future. Today, grass covers the place where the spoil once stood. Beneath it lies memory. The yellow hue never fades. The village is quiet. The playground is gone. But the voices of pant-glass children still echo in the wind. October 21st, 1966. A day that should have been ordinary, full of laughter, school bells, and childhood dreams. But in a matter of minutes, Aberfan was forever changed. The mountain had warned them again and again, but the warnings were buried, ignored, dismissed as noise. And so, when that coal tip collapsed, it wasn't nature that failed Aberfan. It was man. It was negligence. It was avoidable. 116 children, 28 adults, lives stolen, futures lost, a community shattered. The world watched in horror. Rescue workers dug through mud with bare hands. Fathers uncovered the lifeless bodies of their own children. And the silence that followed was deafening. The pain of Aberfan did not end with the burial of the dead, continued in the betrayal that followed, the money taken from a disaster. Fund to pay for the removal of the very tip that killed them. In the delayed justice, in the empty promises of accountability. And yet Aberfan endured. A community that could have disappeared in grief chose instead to remember, to rebuild, and to rise. Memorial gardens now bloom where the school once stood, not as a replacement, but as a promise. A promise that they will never be forgotten. We owe Aberfan more than just remembrance. We owe them vigilance, because the question isn't whether disasters will happen again, but whether we will listen when the warning signs appear. This is more than a story of tragedy. It's a lesson, a haunting reminder that when power turns a blind eye to danger, the consequences are borne by the innocent. To the children of Aberfan, laughter may have been silenced, but your memory echoes through time. And to all of us watching, if this story moved you, do not let it be forgotten. Share it. Speak of it. Learn from it. Hit like not for the algorithm, but to honor those who never got to grow up. Subscribe to this channel if you believe history, especially painful history, must be remembered, not buried. And if you can, share this video. Let the world know. Aberfan mattered. Aberfan still matters, because remembering them is how we promise never again.